Hey guys, welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast post-game show. Hope you guys are having a great night. Got another Detroit Pistons victory over the Chicago Bulls. They had a back-to-back this week, finishing it 2-0. Now they have All-Star break. Cade Cunningham and Asar Thompson will be heading to All-Star Weekend in San Francisco in the Bay Area. Everyone else can get some much-needed rest. If you guys are brand new here, what we do is we break down the quarters. I take notes during the game. I discuss some key points throughout the game. And then after that, what I do is I open up the show, Q&A segments. If you guys have questions, comments, or overall thoughts with tonight's game, or maybe just a question about the Detroit Pistons, feel free to drop it in the YouTube chat if that's where you are watching live right now. If you are an audio listener listening to this later on, make sure to give us a 5-star review. It does really help out the podcast, and we're available wherever you guys get your podcast. But let's get into today's post-game show. So the Pistons come out very, very aggressive. As it's kind of been like a theme lately, Asar Thompson's defense was just immediately felt. Chicago had to take a timeout within the first minute. Kobe White falls to the floor. They call timeout. But I did not expect the Bulls to lay down. I expected them to come out with some fight, and that's what happened for about 2 quarters tonight. They came out. They were really giving the Pistons a lot of trouble in the transition game. At times in the first quarter, I was kind of nervous because the Pistons weren't rebounding the ball the way I wanted them to. There were so many just long offensive rebounds that the Bulls were getting. But the Pistons come away to end the first quarter with a tie, 32-32. Coming out of the first quarter, Bulls really pushed the pace. They were just looking to run. They did not want to be a team that was settling in the half court. And I think that's a big reason why the Pistons beat them so badly yesterday, is because they really forced them into half court sets. And it's really easy to pick apart a Chicago Bulls team that doesn't really have a true number one option. But the Bulls were looking to push the pace. And then they had plenty of scoring opportunities tonight. There's a little dust up with Ayo DeSumo and Simone Fontecchio, which I don't really know why Ayo DeSumo got upset. He literally grabbed Fontecchio. They got double techs, which I'm not really a fan of. But after that tech, the offense really woke up for the Detroit Pistons at the 6-minute mark. They went on an 8-0 run. The defense was making stops, and the Pistons gave themselves a pretty nice cushion going into halftime, with a score of 66-59 favoring the Detroit Pistons. Coming out of halftime, the defense, I think, really woke up. Coming out of halftime, Masar talked with Johnny Kane with FanDuel, basically saying, we got to get back on defense. We have to match their energy in transition. And I think that's exactly what they did. They made stops. The offense came out aggressive. Cade looked to kind of take over, and that's what he did. He had 13 points in the third quarter, and the dunk that he had, my goodness, he switched hands. If you guys haven't seen the highlight, it's probably everywhere. That was such a beautiful dunk. I could talk about that dunk for 15 minutes, but I'm not going to. I don't want to bore you guys, but that was just such a crazy dunk. Pistons go out, get a 15-point lead, but they kind of got a little sloppy towards the end of the third. There were multiple turnovers. I think there was 4 straight turnovers. Bulls going a 10-2 run, got it within 10. But to end the third quarter, Pistons kind of picked up the pace offensively again to end it with a score of 96-82. Going into the fourth, the defense just continued to make stops. Malik Beasley finally got a little bit heated up in the fourth. The Bulls were not going to let him shoot as many threes as they did yesterday. They were guarding him like he was prime Steph Curry. It was actually kind of funny to see. But Malik had a couple threes. Bulls make some stops. They go on a 9-0 run, get the game a little close. But last 3-4 minutes of the game, I think the Bulls they had enough. They kind of waved the white flag. Pistons took advantage, and They get back-to-back wins against the Chicago Bulls. They're only one game back right now of the fifth seed, kind of just knocking on the door with the Milwaukee Bucks. They did win this game, though, 128 to 110. Chicago sweep. Love to see it. Really proud of this team, man. Like I was kind of nervous, especially with this week. I didn't know if they were going to bring the energy because it's so close to All-Star weekend, because you know how some players kind of check out, mentally because they want that break. But, JB told the press, like, hey, this is a really good opportunity for us to, give ourselves a couple games to catch up in the Eastern Conference standings. They are now 3 games above 500 with a record of 29-26. And this is the best record the Detroit Pistons have had going into All-Star break since the 2008-2009 season. So it's been a minute since the Detroit Pistons have been close to 30 wins at All-Star break. I do want to open up the show, you guys, to questions, comments, overall thoughts. I feel like this is probably your guys' favorite part of the podcast, because you guys basically get to take over the show and we talk about what you guys want to talk about. But before we do get into that, we're just going to take a quick 30-second break, and we will be right back after this, you guys. Okay, you guys, we are back. I want to open up the show to anyone watching right now live on YouTube. We have 60 of you guys in here. Questions, comments for tonight's game, back-to-back wins over the Bulls, anything you guys do want to talk about, the floor is yours. I do want to go to Mr. My City. Shout out to him, $5 super chat. I appreciate any super chats or any donations you guys want to throw my way. Much appreciated. He has a comment saying Pistons will be a top 3 East team next season, number 1 in 2 seasons. OKC type. Keep this receipt. I love the confidence, Mr. My City. I think what you said, it actually isn't like too big of a hot take, because I think the way they're playing, JB has really instilled culture, and he has this young core believing in themselves. And the veterans that you brought in Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., adding a Dennis Schroeder at the deadline, like, these are veterans that are impacting not only the wins, but they're impacting the off the court situations that us fans don't get to see every day. I could honestly see them, making, some upgrades this offseason, having some decisions to make in terms of what free agents they want to bring back, obviously. But I don't really think, top 3 team in the East is unreasonable, because the way I'm looking at this team and the way that they're playing is, you have Cade Cunningham playing like a top 10 player right now in the NBA. That might sound like a hot take as well, but just the way he's carrying this team night in and night out. You have balanced scoring. There's no egos on this team, and they like playing with each other. Like, the locker room's good. The vibes are good. And I think as Pistons fans, we've seen this when we have successful teams here in Detroit, like team basketball. They set a record. I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was a record that the Pistons broke, that the last Pistons team to do that was the Bad Boys. And the record was having 30 assists in consecutive games. Now, they had 30 assists again tonight. So that's 7 consecutive games of having 30 assists. That tells me they're passing the basketball, they're sharing the basketball, and they're playing for each other, and they're buying into the system in which these coaches are preaching with them. what they're going over in practice, film studies, all that stuff. So, Mr. My City, I don't really think you're far off. It would not surprise me, from a year, maybe 2 years from now, you see the Detroit Pistons at the top of the Eastern Conference because you have Cade, who's just going to flourish here in Detroit. You have young pieces like Asar, who's starting to blossom. Duran is taking steps in the right direction. Jaden Ivey, before he went down, was playing the best ball of his career, shooting 40% from the outside, being a true number 2 option next to Cade Cunningham. And I think when you look at this Detroit Pistons core, it's promising, and you have the right coaching staff right now that is unlocking it and developing it and spending time with them. And they're getting better each game. Like each and every game, I see great passes from Duran. I see Asar Thompson taking the ball up the court as of late. I see so much good stuff with this team where I think it's going to be very sustainable for the long-term future. But appreciate your comment as always. Got a comment from the original 123 kid. This feels good. The past 5 years at All-Star break, the Pistons have been out of the playoffs contention. This year, they're sitting comfortably in the 6th seed. Yeah, around this time, you start like I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine because he's actually a Wizards fan, and they're having a bad season, they're rebuilding, and I told him, I was like, yeah, it's like don't be surprised if you start shutting down a bunch of guys because you want to tank for Cooper Flagg or Ace Bailey, because that's exactly what the Pistons did. Like past 5 years, they were just shutting guys down. Like this time, like in February, like Isaiah Stewart would be shut down. A lot of guys would have like these fake injuries. We'd have like these long injury reports. We'd have like two-way guys, G League guys being in the starting lineup, signing 10-day contracts. But it feels good. It feels good that we're not looking at tankathon standings. We're looking at Eastern Conference playoff standings and looking at the playoff teams that we could possibly go up against in the next couple of months. But I agree with you, man. It's great to come up here, talk about a winning basketball team again, because it's been, since 2018, since we had a basketball team that was pushing to make the playoffs, but couldn't be happier with the progress that this team is playing with. I have a comment from Dolly, and it's about Asar Thompson and Jalen Duran. And it says, I love how Asar and JD look for each other on offense and both cover on defense. Great chemistry developing within the whole team and everyone accepting their roles. Asar defensively, I don't think people realize how much ground he covers. And I think the reason why we've seen such progression with Jalen Duran over the last month and a half is because Asar is covering, weak side. He's covering so much ground for not only like JD, but like Cade, THJ, excuse me, almost burped into the microphone. That would have been gross. But I think what you're seeing is just communication. And we didn't see that last year. Like, you can actually turn on games now and you can hear them talking to each other saying, rebound, screen, weak side. Like, they're out there talking to each other, and that's what good basketball teams do. That's what good defensive basketball teams do. And, they're getting better each and every game. And I think as a Pistons fans, like, you should be really excited about this basketball team. I have a comment from Alec Jasper talking about free agency. So I'm going to get into this. So he says, re-sign Beasley, replace Tim Hardaway Jr. With NAW. So I'm assuming that is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Resign Dennis Schroeder or get another veteran point guard. Sign someone like Taj Gibson as a third center for vibe, stay high, keep getting good vets in the locker room. So there's a lot to unpack here, Alex, and I appreciate your comment, man. I think resign Beasley is probably the number one objective for this front office, and I think as fans, we want Malik Beasley to be here for the foreseeable future because he's just been such a great vet, and he's really opened up the Detroit Pistons bench unit and just his ability just to knock multiple three-point shots and really spark plug off the bench. We'll see what happens this summer because I think it'll be interesting. I think he's going to have a lot of suitors, but maybe he does want to stay here. We'll see. Replace THJ. Well, THJ is going to be a free agent. Now, don't really know what the long-term plans are um, for Tim Hardaway Jr. on the Pistons. Um, in spurts, he's been injected as a small forward this season. Since Asar has come back, he's shooting guard. But it kind of makes you wonder, like, if Jaden Ivey was healthy, would Tim get pushed to the bench and you have Asar as small forward and Jaden Ivey out there? Kind of makes you wonder, right? I don't know. It kind of sucks that he's injured and we don't kind of get to like see what JB could have done with the lineup change. Maybe that's another topic for another day. I do like the Nickeil Alexander Walker. He's a guy that I think is very underrated. Does a lot of little things, doesn't show up in the box score. I've always been a really big fan of his. I like the name drop, Alex. I like where your head is at. Resign Dennis Schroeder. I almost said Dennis Smith. Dennis Schroeder. That's a possibility. Trajan did mention that in his presser that like if he does well enough, they could resign him. Maybe you get another veteran point guard. I think there are some available backup veteran point guards that you could target this summer that aren't going to break the bank. So we'll have to wait and see like where the direction of this team is and if Cade makes All NBA because it could hinder the Detroit Pistons free agent spending. Because he does have incentives in his contract to get more money that way. Taj Gibson, yeah, I mean, like we saw what Taj Gibson did, last season. He really unlocked James Wiseman a little bit. James Wiseman was getting very active and stuff like that. But like, yeah, if you want to sign like a veteran backup center like a Taj Gibson, or like a veteran that's like similar to a Taj. Sure. Maybe they bring back Paul Reed. Not sure. He's kind of like that center 3 right now. Doesn't get a whole lot of playing time, but he's just kind of there just in case, there's foul trouble with Stuart Durham. Maybe they look to bring back B-Ball Paul. Never know. But, overall, I think everything you just, left in this comment, it checks a lot of boxes if you're Trajan Langdon in this front office of like what you want to do, but it's very early. We're only in February. We're already talking about free agency, but I do appreciate your comment, Alex. Very well thought out, and I like the NAW name drop. I have a comment from Ari Rotman. Loving the energy and vibes after every game at the locker room. Yeah, I wonder who's going to get the WWE belt tonight. I think Malik had it last. Who knows who you're going to give it to? You could give it to Asari again. You could give it to Cade. Who knows? Maybe give it to a bench guy that, played well tonight. But yeah, the energies and the vibes with this team, they feel different. I remember on media day when I saw all the guys just smiling and having fun. I was like, something feels different about this team. I don't think they're gonna, win 20 games this season. I think that they're gonna shatter that Las Vegas under over, or because Vegas had the Pistons at 25.5. I got a feeling they're gonna win more. But yeah, it's so funny what happens when you bring in veterans that one want to be here and 2 bring joy and energy, not only to the locker room, but like off the court as well, like a Malik Beasley and a THJ and a Tobias Harris. So I definitely agree, Ari. Appreciate the comment. I have a comment from Dante Massey, and it says, this All-Star break is coming at the right time. Asar gets some time to finish reconditioning. Duran gets to work with Rasheed Wallace. And Cade always snaps on the second half of the season. So I do agree with you. I think that, guys that aren't going to All-Star break, this is an opportunity for them to recharge for the remainder of the season. Asar does still seem winded. I know when he was doing an interview with Johnny, he was out of breath, but he was defending his ass off all night. It gives him a chance to just, catch his breath and, get a little bit of rest. Duran going to work with Rasheed Wallace. I don't know if that's going to happen, but, he did coach him at Memphis for a year. I'm sure Duran is going to get some much needed rest as well. And, they'll probably fly out to go support Cade and Nassar at All-Star break. I'm sure a lot of the Pistons will be out there just to, have fun, celebrate with their guys, making, All-Star teams, rising star teams, and being an All-Star reserve like Cade Cunningham is going to be. And yeah, Cade in the second half of the season always seems to do well because I think sometimes during the season, especially when they're playing October, November, they don't have their legs under them yet. It takes some players a little bit longer to kind of get into the rhythm. And Cade's always seems like around February, March, April, he plays his best basketball. I don't know that for a fact, but just like the eye test, um, it just seems he plays better. Maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe there are stats that actually back up that he actually plays better in the beginning of the year. But just my eye test tells me that, Cade, second half of the season plays a little bit better. I do want to get into some more questions and comments with you guys. I do see a super chat from my guy, Case Cracked. Shout out to Case Cracked. And it's a question about a power forward. So if we're looking long term, who replaces Tobias? I don't think they're on the roster, Case Cracked. I think what could happen, and I saw this conversation on Twitter with some Pistons fans, and I'm kind of under the same opinion. I think they could possibly package a Simone Fontecchio and maybe a Tobias Harris for a upgrade at power forward. Now, who could that be? I've seen names like Lauri Markkanen thrown out. Don't really know how realistic that is. I've seen names thrown out like a Herb Jones. I've seen names thrown out like a Jaren Jackson Jr. I think there are options per power forward. I don't really know. I don't know what they do at power forward personally. I think that it's a position that Tobias right now is a placeholder until maybe this front office feels that there's a move to be made to where they can get better. But right now, Tobias is playing some pretty good ball. Like, past 4 or 5 games, he's putting together good games. He's definitely picking up his scoring with Ivy being out and kind of being like that number 2 option next to Cade, number 3 option as of late because Asar's been playing so damn well. But yeah, I think when you look at it, there are power forwards that we could have a discussion about. I haven't really dug down the rabbit hole looking at rosters of power forwards that the Pistons could possibly be traded for. Maybe I'll do that in a future podcast, Case Cracked, and this summer, and we can look at possible trades that the Pistons could, try to pull the trigger on. But I think for right now, they don't really have an available player that they think that could step up for Tobias. I know some people think that Bobby Klitman could be that guy. We haven't seen Bobby outside of garbage time. He's done well in the Cruise, but I think Bobby's a few years away from contributing in ways in which Tobias Harris is currently contributing. But he's definitely a prospect to keep an eye on. So we do have a comment from Kenyetta, and he wants to know the next 10 Detroit Pistons games. I'm going to look that up for you because I don't know off the top of my head. I'm just going to go over to ESPN and look at the schedule. So they have the San Antonio Spurs in San Antonio. They have the Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta. They have the Clippers at home, Boston at home, Denver at home, Brooklyn at home, Jazz on the road, and Clippers on the road. So, I mean, I think Atlanta is a winnable game. I think San Antonio, I wouldn't sleep on that game. LA's a pretty good team. Boston always gives us trouble. Denver's beatable, but we have to be on our A game. Brooklyn's tanking, so I think that's an easy game, but I'm not going to, sit up here and say that the Pistons couldn't go, 5-5, 6-4, 7-3. I think they've shown us that they can compete and play with anybody personally. I usually don't try to look at schedules outside of a week-to-week basis. Just take it 3-4 games at a time. But yeah, the end of the February schedule will definitely be a test for the Detroit Pistons. Maybe they can, sneak one against Boston, sneak one against Denver, but you never really know. I have a comment from Alec Jasper. Is it crazy to say Katie's the best player on the floor versus any team in the East besides the Bucks and the Celtics? No, it's not. What he does on both ends of the floor, Alex, I think shouldn't go unnoticed. He's usually defending the best player, and he's the number one option on his basketball team. Like the 13 points tonight against the Bulls, the Pistons needed that. They needed him to, take over, give them a little bit of edge going into the fourth quarter. I think night in and night out, he's one of the best players, if not the best player, when the Pistons are playing another opposing team. Like tonight, like, yeah, he was the best player on the floor. I honestly think Asar Thompson, if he was on the Bulls right now, he'd probably be the best player on the Bulls. Like, and that's no shot at the Bulls. They're tanking and rebuilding, but like most nights, Kate is going to be that guy. Want to get to a couple of comments and more comments and questions with you guys. So this comes from Kiazi. Shout out. Go Red Wings, by the way. Love your profile picture. The Bulls broadcasters for definitely in our okay, let me reread this. The Bulls broadcasters definitely all in on Asar and Cade. Boston's in MV of the Pistons having Cade. Multiple fans seeing setting in their live chat. I'm sorry, maybe I'm not comprehending this or I'm tired, but I did see some people talk about the Bulls broadcast talking about Asar Thompson and his activeness defensively. I think night in and night out, you're going to see Cade Cunningham definitely be talked about nationally more often. But, overall, I think this is a young core that's very exciting. I think a lot of us had questions last year with the core because of Monty Williams, and our judgment was a little clouded. But what JB has done, he's really unlocked and helped them. I do want to kind of follow up on a question with Wheezy. He says, Ron or Asar replaces Tobias. See, this is maybe I'm thinking differently from you. I view Ron more as a 2-3 and Asar more as a 3-4. I think ideally, I don't think you're wrong, but I think there could be situations where Cade's playing point guard, Ron's playing shooting guard, Asar's playing small forward. I mean, Ron has shown the ability to hit outside shots this season. He's shooting 30% for the year, or not 30% for the year, but 30% since December. I think Asar could definitely play power forward, but I think naturally small forward is better for him. I think there's opportunities for the Pistons to get better at the power forward position. Not to say that Asar can't play it. I think he could, but that's just the way I view Ron Holland and Asar Thompson. I could be wrong there, though. That's just me. How would you grade Dennis's performance so far? I know it's a small sample size and he's still adjusting, but I don't like see him settling for mid-range shots and threes. He's at his best when he's getting to the rim. I think right now, if you just want to grade him, I would probably give him like a B-. I think there were times tonight where I thought that he definitely could have attacked more. Some of the floaters that he shot tonight just were rimming out. I think he's still trying to find ways in which he can attack without taking away from his teammates. But I think overall, he's probably going to watch some film to see where, he can get more into his sweet spot and score a little bit more. But I think overall he's done a pretty good job, and it might not show up in the box score, but you can tell in the second unit, um, it's more organized. There's someone out there that can set up the offense. There's someone out there that can facilitate, score his when he needs to get where he needs to get. But I think just give Dennis at least 10 games, 10, 15 games to get used to the guys, watch some film, learn the system, learn JB's system. And I think the second unit will just be firing on all cylinders because you're going to have Malik out there. You're going to have Dennis. You're going to have Stu out there. Ron out there. Tech, which, man, poor Tech. Like, I don't know if you guys saw. I don't know if that was a shot or a pass, but it like hit the side of the backboard and like JB pulled him out and he didn't play him for the remainder of the game, man. It was so bad. Like, I don't even know what that was. I really don't. I want to get to one more comment and question from DG, and then we're going to wrap up this podcast. So shout out to him. I said, is it possible to keep the young core on the team long term? Cade, Ivy, Asar, Ron, and Duran. So I think no, it's not, because eventually you're going to have to make a decision on these guys. Now, I don't think any of these guys are going to get the supermax like Cade, but that's a lot of guys to pay. Cade, Ivy, Asar, Ron, and Duran. I think eventually, if you want to make a move and, kind of catapult yourself into, Eastern Conference contention, you might have to make a decision on one of these guys you just named. Now, I don't know who it would be, but I think it's really premature right now. I mean, you could have conversations about paying them all. Like, we don't know what a Jaden Ivey could possibly get this summer. I think they could easily pay him anywhere from $80 to $100 million with an extension. Duran's up for an extension as well. I'm sure he's looking to get paid. Asar will be extension eligible, not this summer, but the following summer, and then Ron as well, 3 summers from now. So, eventually, it could get a little pricey, but it depends on the develop too. Just my opinion, I don't think you can afford to pay them all. I think you might have to bite the bullet on one of them, but we're so far away from that even being a conversation right now. I don't think any of these guys are going to demand like a supermax like Cade got, but I think the way they're playing and the way they're growing, you never know. You never know. I just think, if you want to package one of these guys for an upgrade, a borderline, star or an all-star, then you have those conversations, right? But I think right now, it's kind of premature to, have conversations like this, but just my opinion, DG, I think like when that time comes, we'll definitely be covering and definitely have conversations about it on this YouTube channel and on this podcast. But because I'm talking when every respective player's contract runs out. Yeah, like I get what you're saying. Like, Ivy and Duran are both eligible to be extended this summer. Now, the Pistons could say, we're not extending you this summer. We'll let you go to restricted free agency, kind of a prove it deal, and then we'll sign you. They could definitely do that this summer. They could say, we're not going to pay you this summer, Jaden Ivey. We're not going to pay you this summer, Jalen Duran. We're going to let you guys go to restricted free agency, and then we'll make it a business decision whether or not I'm going to keep you on the team. They could do that. Trajan in the front office could do that. I'm under the impression that they're not going to. I think they'll take care of Ivy because I think they saw enough with him and Cade to where you feel comfortable with the backcourt, even with him breaking his fibia. I think he'll be good. With Duran, the first couple of months of the season were kind of underwhelming defensively, but as of late, he's really turned it on. I think if he finishes, the second half of the season strong the way he's been playing, the organization will definitely have conversations about trying to extend Duran, keeping him long term. I think with Asar to me, I think you would have conversations immediately with contract extensions, because if he keeps stacking games the way he's stacking games, he adds a whole nother dimension to this team. And then, Ron, for his rookie season so far, he's playing pretty good ball, but, we just saw Luka Doncic get traded to the Lakers. So, I mean, nobody is safe, man. Like, I don't even want to sit up here and say yeah, the Pistons are going to pay every single, rookie or young core guy that they have right now. I think everyone's available for the right price at the end of the day, but it'll be interesting to see what this front office does do. And I know some fans get really invested and really involved with these young guys, and I get it. I really do, but I'm not going to sit up here and say the Pistons are just going to pay them all and just run it back. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't want to sit up here and act like I know all the answers, because I don't. But I am going to wrap up this podcast, you guys. We've been on for almost 40 minutes. We'll have content throughout the week on this YouTube channel. We might do a shorter podcast, maybe before the All-Star break, or on a Monday after the All-Star break. But hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Pistons, again, win this game 128-110. 6 seed, 1 game out of the 5 seed with the Milwaukee Bucks. But until next time, you guys, I will see you guys later. Take care and go Pistons.